Hello and welcome to the third episode of the daily SBK betting podcast this week, covering all the action at the 2025 Cheltenham Festival. Tom Collins here, and I'm joined by the brilliant Ross Millar as ever. Buckle up for the next 20 minutes or so as we'll recap some of Wednesday's action and then go through the whole Thursday card with tips and analysis. We'll start with a brief review then of Wednesday's contests, and we're literally filming this straight after the Champion Chase, so we will start there with the featured event. Ross, another incident-packed race. Marine Nationale comes out on top, a touching winner due to his connection with Michael O'Sullivan, who rode him to victory in the Supreme in March 2023. Goosebumps.
Yeah, really was, TC, wasn't it? It's one of those, for the wrong reason, you'd like to be there, because I just think racing does so many things wrong, but getting behind each other, it can do really well. And if Jonbon wasn't going to win it, then Marine Nationale was absolutely the deserving winner. And Calixtos came down at the last. Jonbon took himself out of it halfway round, didn't he? But it was a good performance because he was free enough through the early stage of Marine Nationale, and he stayed on powerfully up the hill. So much as it will perhaps be a asterisk sort of Champion Chase with Jonbon making a mistake, I don't think that's fair. I think he was a deserving winner by certain.
Yeah, I do as well. I thought he travelled the best throughout the race. He jumped the best in a race full of horses that aren't necessarily the best jumpers, and he managed to get the job done. Jonbon, as you say, ran very well to finish second after the incident, but I said in the preview pod, I just wasn't sure about his jumping. And after that evidence and previous evidence at Cheltenham, he just tends to miss one. I'm not quite sure why. He seems better elsewhere, but he still ran gallantly in defeat. I also thought Calixtos ran well for a long way, considering how fast they went up to that first fence.
Yeah, and Calixtos wouldn't have had his ground either, would he? He'd have preferred a bit of cut. Yeah, I think it's important in this game, isn't it, that when you get stuff wrong, you've got to sort of look at it and say, got that wrong. I think I've got two things wrong today with my calls. And Jonbon, yeah, perhaps, Aidan Coleman was right and you're right, and Cheltenham was not his trap because he did make a catastrophic error. I wonder, hindsight is the foresight of a gobshite, they say, but I wonder in hindsight whether Nico de Boinville would have rather just had a pocket of space, either a little bit further back or a little bit further forward. He was sort of in a sandwich of four, and, that might prove costly, but it's jump racing. You have to jump to win. We saw that yesterday, and we've seen it again today.
Yeah, it's been a very incident-packed start to the Cheltenham Festival, that's for sure. Plenty of short-price favourites making mistakes. You talked about potentially getting that wrong. Well, you've got plenty of things right on Wednesday, including the Turners. That was a very good contest with three nice horses. You picked the winner in the New Lion. He just managed to overhaul the Yellow Clay, who ran very well. I bet him each way, so I'm not too sad about him finishing second. Ross, just a proper race, wasn't it?
A really proper race. I think both novice hurdles, yesterday's Supreme and today, will look back in years to come and say, God, weren't they good races? Because I think the front three look really solid. And a really good ride by Harry Skelton. I mean, I was one of those ones a few years back that sort of slightly get frustrated at him, sort of thinking the winning post at the top of the hill, but he has matured. He's got on better horses. He's developed his riding, and he made all the right decisions. He stayed on the rail for as long as he needed to. He switched when he needed to, and the New Line had a good turn of foot, but also really gritty as well. It was a proper ding dong up the hill, and he certainly wasn't found wanting in the guts department.
No, absolutely not. And Yellow Clay is a proper stayer. He wants 3 miles. So the fact he actually outsped him and then outstayed him at the end suggests that the New Line's a very strong stayer at the trip too. Also a nice mention for another winner that you put up in Jimmy DeSoy in the Coral Cup. 16-1. Whack a comment down below if you followed Ross in there. Hopefully plenty of you did. Very well done, Ross.
Yeah, he went through it nicely. I was just coming off the hill. I was actually more looking at Ballyadam as my other selection, thinking he was going better. And just for a moment, Jimmy DeSoy looked like he was struggling to lay up. And then, as soon as I hit the rising ground, it was pretty obvious that, bar a mistake at the last, which we know can happen, he looked the most likely winner, and probably a progressive horse. To do that off his first start since Punchtown, you'd imagine there's a bit more to come, and might well be a graded horse in a handicap when we look back.
And the last horse to touch about from Wednesday's card is Ballyburn, who was the disappointment, I suppose, at the prices. He just did nothing right. I mean, he jumped terribly, was never in the right spot, had an awkward head carriage in the early stages and again in the middle part of the race. He still ran well to only be beaten 8 lengths, but, God, he was a bit frustrating, wasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, I said I got two things wrong, and I didn't have all the winners yesterday, but I felt like my assessment of how it might go was right. I didn't think I got an awful lot wrong, but today, Ballyburn didn't jump anywhere near well enough. He was far too keen. I'm surprised at the tactics. I understand drop him in, try and get him to settle and get him to stay, but that backfired big time. And the issue you've got when they get their head long and low like that on a loopy rein, going up a hill to that big jumping effort, because you're jumping up a hill over an open ditch, you don't have enough sort of positive tension in the frame and enough power off the hind leg to get there. And he's probably lucky to stand up, really. It was a good sit by Paul Townend, but it was curtains from there on in. And, Lecky Watson was a good winner, wasn't he, under a good ride from Sean O'Keefe?
Yeah, I could have never have had the winner personally, but I know plenty of people did like him at a big price. I'll second what you say about the tactics. Considering they've been coming into the Cheltenham Festival saying he's absolutely guaranteed to improve for the step up, it's quite surprising that they ride him in behind horses, bury him against the rail, and that kind of didn't help, did it? They should have just been more aggressive, go to the front alongside Dancing City and try and dominate. But that's easy to say in hindsight, I suppose, and they'll learn from that and potentially adopt more aggressive tactics next time. Okay, let's look ahead now. Before we go through Thursday's card, again, this is a section where I go through some of the offers that SBK has available. Firstly, opt in and place a £5 bet builder on any Champions League football game this evening on Wednesday, and you'll get a free £2 bet for the Mayor's Novices Hurdle, the first race on the Thursday card at Cheltenham. Secondly, SBK is offering a 20% winnings boost on that Mayor's Novices Hurdle, the first race on Thursday. And finally, at this stage, SBK is providing a free £2 Cheltenham multiple for all customers who opt in. Make sure you opt in to receive that, otherwise you won't be able to qualify. T&Cs do apply. Right, here we go then. The Mayor's Novices Hurdle, third time I've mentioned that in about 2 minutes, is up first at 120. 6.5 is your 130 favourite at this stage and quite highly touted for the Gavin Cromwell team. But she's had just one hurdling start in her whole career. Can she win this?
I'm sure she can, TC. I mean, Gavin Cromwell's got his team here on good form. This is a race that I would encourage you not to, no matter how positive you feel about a selection, just rein your stakes back. I think this has got all the look of a real surprising result because so few of them have done so much over hurdles. Like you say, 6.5 is likely raced over hurdles. I suppose she has at least got a bit of flat form, round one on the flat, round one on the bumper, but I want to oppose it on her price and with lack of experience. I'll take 2 at a decent enough price. Aurora Vega, I mean, coming into this, it looked like she was being talked of as sort of the certain third string, but Paul Townend does jump on. She's 3 from 4 over hurdles. Her one defeat came when she was found to be abnormal in the post race examination. She's got plenty of experience with those 4 runs. Her mother knew the way around here. I think she'll like the ground. I think she would give you a run for your money. And then the other one that I mentioned on the anti-post preview pod just arose, the second string for Paul Nicholls. Again, lightly raced, so the price is built into this. She was really impressive at Taunton, showed loads of speed, looks like a relentless galloper, looked very straightforward. But also, I do like a point-to-point run. Now, point-to-point form is not always taken at face value, but this point-to-point, UK point-to-point, does look well. Good level of form. Country Mile, the runner-up's rated 137, and she burnt him off in the first 2 miles of that race. She looks like she's got bags of speed. Freddie Gingelon, perfectly happy with that booking. So I'll take those 2, but it won't be a race that will affect my week terribly badly if they don't come in.
Couple of big prices there for Ross then. Aurora Vega at 10 to 1, Just a Rose at 22 to 1. I respect the Irish challenge in here, but I just cannot bet horses like 6.5 and Maureen after just one hurdling outing in a big field like this around Cheltenham. Just not for me, considering their prices. I'm going to go for Diva Luna each way for trainer Ben Pauling. She's as big as 37 to 1 with SBK, a lot shorter elsewhere, but still a fair price if you're getting double digits. She's a Grade 2 bumper winner. She's very smart. She just needs to put it all together, but she has the right racing style for this contest. We'll move swiftly on to the Jack Richards Novices Handicap Chase at 2 p.m. Wide open race. The favourite is Nurburgring at 13 to 2. How many here for you, Ross? And is Nurburgring one of them?
Nurburgring is one, TC. I've been on him from a little way out, so I don't need to take 13 to 2, but I still think he's probably the most likely winner. I just think he's been really eye-catching over fences. Well, firstly, he's got good course form, was 4th in the Triumph, staying on really well. Eye-catching in his first 2 novice chases, particularly behind Down Memory Lane over 2 miles and Touch Me Not over 2 miles. They're both decent, borderline graded horses. He's off a mark of 143. That's the £3 Irish tax. Still puts him £7 below his hurdle mark. Joseph O'Brien, we don't need to say about him at this meeting. He gets them lined up year on year for these handicaps. So I do like Nurburgring for all he's getting shorter in the market. And then just one second one that it's surprising that how far down the weights you can come to get into this. And Shanbally Kid has got in. He was another one I was going to mention on the preview pod, but didn't because I thought there was no chance he'd get a run. He runs £5 out the handicap. His chase form is nothing much to write home about, but I would encourage you to go back and watch his Nace run, beginner's chase, 2 mile 4. He ballooned the first fence. Look, he'd never seen a fence in his life. And given what Willie Mullins said about not schooling them, that might well be the case. But he was bang there going to the second last, was travelling as well as the winner. The winner was Lecky Watson. He dropped back to 2 miles after that. They tried cheap pieces last time over 2 miles as Tom Cruise goes overhead. That didn't do him an awful lot of good. Steps back up in trip, and he was third in the Coral last year off this mark. So I do think if he put it together, he's a nicely handicapped horse. Brian Hayes rides, so that tells you the sort of level of stable confidence, but I don't think he's to be dismissed.
Nurburgring and Shanbally Kid then for Ross, a favourite and a rag in this contest. It's worth taking a few darts, I think, at this race, considering the depth and also the prices available. This just screams like a Gordon Elliott kind of race to me, the more I look at it. So I'm going to play a couple of his horses, Firefox and D Capo. Firefox around 8 to 1, D Capo around 50 to 1 with SBK. You're getting a price there. I think if you play either each way, both each way, hopefully at least one will hit the frame. And they've got a good chance of winning as well. More so Firefox than De Capo, but I wouldn't be giving up on that second string. The Pertemps final is up next, a maximum field of 24 runners. Jericho de Repene tops the market at this stage for JP McManus. Not the only JP horse that's favourite on Thursday. He's currently 11 to 2. Nicky Henderson and Nico de Boinville will be hoping to get another victory under their belt. It's been a frustrating week.
It has. I mean, this I think is probably my version of the cross-country chase today for UTC. It does make my eyes bleed a little bit, so I'll bat it back to you. I would just say that Patter Merchant caught my eye at the Dublin Racing Festival. I would have quite fancied if he dropped back in trip. I'm not sure he stayed, but given it's the Pertemps, and you can't particularly take all this form on face value, but on better ground, maybe he'd be the one. Would just wonder though how Gordon Elliott's feeling about his form. There's one or two that have just run way below what they might have expected, so that is a mild concern.
Yeah, Patter Merchant there, a small shout from Ross at 25 to 1. I'm pretty keen on a horse in here and it's Feet of a Dancer. I'm on at 16 and 14 to 1. I mean, it's not much bigger than is currently available. I think you can still get 10 to 1 with SBK, maybe even 12 to 1 by the time the race comes around, which isn't bad. She's just been a huge eye catcher recently. She's been ridden really patiently, moved up on the outside of her races, and then just failed to sustain that big surge late in the contest and been overhauled, but she's finished in the places. She also ran in the Leopardstown Pertemps qualifier that works out beautifully every single year for this exact event. And Paul Nolan's won this race before with Mrs. Milner, so I'm hopeful that Feet of a Dancer can go very close. The Ryanair is next up. That's at 320. Factor File is your favourite, around 13 to 10, 6 to 4 kind of price. He's ducked the Gold Cup. They're going here instead. Another one for JP at the top of the market.
Yeah, I like Factor File TC. You know, we all disagreed on the preview pod as to whether he was ducking the Gold Cup or coming for a race he can win. I think he's coming for the race he can win. I like the addition of Ile Francais. I think that will give him a bit of a lead, help him settle. Positive ride from Mark Walsh. I hope, and he'll jump well enough. I think he'll relish this drop back in trip. He's a strong traveller to my mind. I know you can poke holes in the form from last year. You know, Leopardstown, you know, maybe Gaelic Warrior didn't turn up, and then perhaps the form of the Browns advisory win last year hasn't worked out. But I think he's a smart horse. The fact they sent him straight over fences suggests they think he's a real deal. So I'm not going to desert him at this late hour. And I would just mention Jungle Boogie. He was actually my first anti-post bet after the Gold Cup last year, where, watch it back, he tanks through the race like probably the best horse in the race and doesn't stay. He's only had one run since. That was in an Ascot intermediate chase, which was a bit of a messy race, but he jumped violently out to his left around Ascot, still won. I think he's got an ideal place sort of play about him for this race.
Yeah, Factor File then for Ross, and then a little word for Jungle Boogie as well at a bigger price. We kind of agree to disagree to agree, I think, on Factor File. We're both picking him. I think he would have gone close in the Gold Cup. You don't, but we're agreeing that he's the most likely winner here. So, yeah, Factor File is going to be my play as well. He's just a better horse than these, in my opinion, and should gallop them all into submission. He's got course form, and he's just the most talented. The Stayers Hurdle is next up at 4 p.m. We're getting another relatively short price favourite here in Tihupu, but not as short as I was anticipating. He's about 6 to 4, 17 to 10-ish on SBK at the time of recording. I thought he was going to be odds on here, Ross.
Yeah, words are Tom Collins was seen going to his local bookmaker in a dumper truck full of cash to try and shorten the price. And probably the two we disagreed on run on this day, weren't they? Factor File for the Gold Cup and Tihupu. I just think there's so much going against him. Ground, I would slightly now question Gordon Elliott's form. And he beat a moderate bunch of old horses last year. Again, it's not a strong division, but there are at least young pretenders coming through. I've gone with two of them. The most obvious, I think, is Lucky Place for Nicky Henderson, Nico de Boinville. 2 from 2 this year. He won the Ascot Hurdle, looked really good. Then went on to Cheltenham over 2 mile 4 and won there, or 2 mile 5 as it was. Stayed really strongly. I think he's going to relish his step up in trip. The form with Gal Road has worked out nicely after that. And then I would just take Mystical Power at a big price. I mean, he's got to prove he stayed, but Annie Power, before she won the Champion Hurdle, she went very close in the Stayers Hurdle. So good was she. By Galileo, well, they can do it all, can't they? He certainly won't be found wanting for guts up the hill. He's got to put 2 poor runs behind him this year, but he's been off for a bit of a break, freshened up. I think the fact they're prepared to come here speaks volumes. So I'll take him at a big price, and I might even place Lady Hooper on the day.
No way. Okay, I'm not happy about this. Ross is taking on T Hooper with lucky place at 7-1, mystical power at 20-1. T Hooper is my nap of the meeting. I just think he's a good thing in here. He's got a stone in hand on lucky place on official figures. Won this race last year. Good prep. Ran very well behind Lossiemouth over an adequate trip last time. Okay, the ground might not be ideal, but I think he is versatile enough. He's got tactical speed. He just seems to have everything for me in this Stayers. And okay, maybe Gordon Elliott's yard isn't firing on all cylinders, but hopefully he'll win the race earlier on, the Jack Richards Novices Chase, and then he'll get that winner that he is overdue. Okay, next race is the Plate. It doesn't get any easier. This is tough. Supremely difficult race. Jaguars at the top of the market. Shock, owned by JP McManus in the green and gold once again. Are we finding a price here?
Yeah, I think you've got to, TC. I loved Jaguar last year as he sort of progressed along. I've not been blown away by him this year. I think he's got a mistake in him. I think the cut and thrust of a big field handicap, they might well have been behind their light under a bushel with the trainer connection and the owner connection, but big field handicap, I happily take him on and take my medicine if I'm wrong. A slight loyalty bet, which, as we've said, is not always the way to go. Fugitif, off a mark of 148. Spoke to Richard in the week. He's really happy with him. He loves this track. He was second off 149 2 years ago, 2023. He's won a handicap over course and just off 151. Cheap pieces go back on. Sean Bowen is on. And I just don't see a stack of unexposed novices in this. Fugitif, I wouldn't be sleeping on him. I think he's got a lively each way chance. And then the other one I'll take is Jordan's again for Joseph O'Brien. Looks like he's ready for a step up in trip. He's a novice. He's finished really strongly behind Impere passing the Forheen Novices Chase last time out. That's graded form. Joseph O'Brien had plenty he could have run in this. Jordan's is the main string, I think, so I'll certainly have it on him as well.
Another couple of darts then for Ross in this race with Fugitif at 26-1, Jordan's at 10-1, a couple of double figure prices there. I'm going to also go for a double figure price, and it's going to be Ginny's Destiny, who's currently 16-1 with SBK. I am well aware that Paul Nicholls has not had the best of years. He's also not got the best of horses right now in his yard. Ginny's Destiny needs to get back to something like his best, but if he does, I think he's the class act in this race. Look, I won't be having a big bet by any means, but maybe a small little tickle on Ginny's Destiny each way. Got good course form, dropping down the ratings. Maybe he can play a big role. Finally, it's on to the Kim Muir then for the amateur riders. Derek O'Connor is the guy that everyone looks at here. Just one of the best riders around in Ireland and whenever he comes over to the UK. He rides the favourite, Johnny Who. Shock, JP McManus once again. Will JP get a winner?
Yeah, he might well do, TC. I mean, I get a bit of flack in the comments on YouTube for sort of voicing what I think is a fair and reasoned opinion that I'm not a big fan of John Joe O'Neill Jr. over fences, particularly in big handicaps on novices. Derek O'Connor is an amateur. I wouldn't be at all surprised to see Johnny Who jump better for having Derek on. But again, I'm going to try and go for a couple at a price. Walking on Air is a horse I have been watching, and I was absolutely sick. For some reason, my tracker let me down, and I missed him in the Great Yorkshire Chase last time. Back Richard Hobson's horse, who looked booked for second. Walking on Air went steaming past and came down at the last. He's just off a £4 higher mark here. He looks really well handicapped. Ex-Nicky Henderson horse. Alan O'Sullivan in the saddle, brother of Michael O'Sullivan. That would be a really great story. I'm not backing him for that reason, but I think Walking on Air still looks very well handicapped. And then perhaps the most Mad Miller selection of the week, Pat's Fancy. You've got to go back a long way to when I did have a full head of hair, to when he was running well in 2 novices chases. He beat Imperial Alcazar, who went on to run very well at that year's festival in a novice chase, I think around Chepstow, and then went on to run really well, getting weight but running well behind a fresh and as yet unsoured Brave Man's Game at Newbury. That's really good form. He's been off a long time. He looked a little bit regressive at Sandown last time on his return from a long layoff. Rebecca Curtis clearly has a yard in good form. She struck with Haiti Clue early in the week. I'll give him a chance. Small stakes at a big price.
Walking on Air then at 7-1, though that horse is being backed while we are filming this podcast, so he might be a little bit shorter by the time you watch it. Make sure you check that out. Pat's Fancy 33-1 there for Ross. I'll have a very small bet. This is not a race that interests me at all, but 9 Graces appeals to me after a pretty encouraging effort last time at Punchestown in January. He's 16-1. I think he'll jump well. He'll stay the trip, and hopefully he can play a major role. That's Thursday done then. All the races covered. Ross, best selection?
It's a tough day, isn't it? I think the most likely winner is Factor File, but let's say Walking on Air.
Walking on Air then for Ross's best selection. I've thrown you off with that question all 3 days. You're going to have to expect it tomorrow because it's coming again.
No, TC, we've just watched. Yesterday we watched the Champion Hurdle. Today we watched the Champion Chase. I'm still feeling slightly sorry for Jonbon more than myself, I have to say. I think it's going to have to be my thing now, isn't it? What's my selection?
Absolutely. There is no hesitation with mine. It's T Hoopu in the Stayers. Ross and I very much disagree, but one of us will be right. Hopefully, for my sake, it's T Hoopu winning. Now it's time to do our combined 4-leg ACCA. Again, I say this every single time. It's not the way we would play, but we know that plenty of you like doing accumulators. So we're going to pick 2 horses each and put them in. I'll put in T Hoopu and Feet of a Dancer, and you're going to go with...
We can keep this in if you like, TC and Alex. I know Nurburgring is one, but I'm that thrown by what I've just watched that I can't remember the other one.
I think it's Walking on Air.
Walking on Air, yeah, of course it would be my best bet of the best bet there. That would make sense, wouldn't it? Yeah, Nurburgring and Walking on Air to complete the ACCA.
Yeah, so that accumulator, if you fancied joining us with those 4 horses, you're looking at around 1,250-1. Huge price accumulators. That's what we're doing on purpose. There is no point betting or putting up 4-leg 6-1 ACCAs. Just doesn't work with those short price favourites. It's just not worth doing. The risk-free reward is not there. Excellent stuff then. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this podcast. If you did, whack a like down below. Comment as well who you like on Thursday and give Ross some praise for a fantastic Wednesday too. Just a reminder of numerous offers that I've already listed that SBK currently have. 20% winnings boost on the Ryanair Mares Novices Hurdle. That's the first race on Thursday. A free £2 Cheltenham multiple on offer for all customers if you opt in for the Cheltenham Festival. Also, a free £2 bet if you place a £5 bet builder on a Champions League game on Wednesday night. Again, opt in if you want to apply for that. T's and C's do matter here. Also, all new SBK users get £40 in free bets when you sign up and place your first £10 bet. And finally, you can watch all of these podcasts. There are millions of them on the SBK app. You've just got to go to the horse racing page and click play. But we're still always here on YouTube. Thank you very much for watching this episode. Hope you enjoyed it. See you again tomorrow.
Well done for saying champion.